Today's interview is with Kimberly Marie. Kimberly is a multifamily real estate investor now, but she started out flipping homes. And interestingly, she sort of bought up one street and flipped the whole street because she knew it, she understood it, she liked the area, she knew what was going on there. So cool story. She then did the same thing with some buy and hold single families, but she's now bought two decently sized multifamily properties. One was didn't have too much meat on the bone. The second one she just closed, and there's a really interesting story about that one. So you want to hear all about that, so stick around for all that good stuff. Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we're joined by Kimberly Marie. Hey, Kim.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. How are you doing?
Doing wonderful. Thanks for asking.
Oh, cool. Well, we had a little bit of a pivot. We were supposed to be doing something else this morning, and then, you know, as real estate investors, you've got to be able to pivot and make the best of certain circumstances. So we turned around and recorded this. So I'm excited to talk to you a little bit before and then to talk to you a lot more during this interview. But before we dive into all that fun stuff, do you want to give us an idea about who you are and what you've been up to?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Kimberly Marie. I invest in Indianapolis, Indiana right now. I have about 65 doors in my portfolio. And I first started in single family investing. I started with completely flipping homes, building them from the ground up. This home here that I'm sitting in, I actually completely rebuilt from the studs. And then, as the years went on, I've been doing this for about 5 years now. I just kind of transitioned to buy and hold single family, then buy and hold multifamily, and then development. So it's kind of been a little bit of a ride. I keep pivoting, but here I am now. So
oh, that's what led to this interview, I guess, right?
Exactly.
So how did you get started? And especially in that kind of niche, right? A lot of people might do a little bit of a wholesale deal, or they might buy a neat turnkey property. You decided to go head on into taking stuff down, like completely rebuilding these homes. What did you have any background in that? What kind of led to that?
Yeah, I had no background whatsoever. What led to it was when I first graduated, I bought a home in a gentrifying area of Indianapolis. The neighborhood was called Fountain Square. So when I bought it, I'm a runner. So I'd run around the neighborhood. I had a dog and I'm really social. So I like to meet my neighbors and everything. And I saw what was going on in the neighborhood. And I was like, wow, like there's a really bad house right here. And then I would watch them completely renovate it. And like over 5 months or 4 months, I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like all of these houses all around me. And so I just was like, hey, you know what if I bought a rental, or what if I did this? I had no idea what I was going to do, but I would basically, in hindsight, I realized I was just learning the market without knowing it. And then, so I knew it so well. So when this like complete gut to the studs renovation came up, it was burnt down, condemned, health department liens, the whole thing. I was like, oh my gosh, that's a phenomenal deal. I have to do that. So I just really kind of fell into it, right place at the right time, just the right mindset, and just kind of went from there.
But you didn't have any fear? Was there not like, hey, what am I getting myself in for? What gave you the confidence to go ahead and do that, right? Because I know my first property, no way in hell I would have touched anything like that. I would have just scared stiff to do something like that. So that's awesome that you did. But what was the mindset? What were you thinking at the time to not be afraid of something like that?
Yeah, honestly, I just learned everything. I was psycho. I would walk every single home. So, because I was a consumer first. So I would look at all the things on the market, on Redfin, Zillow, on the MLS, and I would look at all the new homes, like the new beautiful homes. But then also I was looking at all the crappy houses too. I would literally like, if I saw an open door, an open window, I would like let my dog off the leash and I'd climb through. And so I was like, okay. And then I would see it once they were done with it. So I'd walk it before, walk it after. I would walk on job sites during, like, I'd be like, oh, hey, just checking it out. And they'd let me in. Hey, yeah, come on in. I think what gave me confidence was I just knew it so well. Like I felt like I just knew the market like the back of my hand. I knew who was living where, I knew who was buying what. So I knew when I saw this particular house, I said, okay, people are going to start coming this way because of XYZ reasons, because I was a consumer. So I just learned as I went, and that's what gave me that confidence, just learning the market.
That's pretty cool. I'm guessing you kind of fell in love with real estate as soon as you kind of realized what it was and what it was all about.
Yes, I originally started because I wanted to pay off my debt. So when I graduated, I decided to go back to school to get my doctorate degree. So I'm a doctor of physical therapy now. And I was thinking to myself, I calculated it out for the 3-year program, how much it was going to cost me. And it was just under 100 grand. And I was like, man, I just paid off all my debt. How am I going to pay off another 100 grand? And so that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to flip this house. And so now that I'm obviously done with my program. I'm a doctor now. And I was like, man, like, this is great. I'm trying to transition out of physical therapy and just do real estate because it's so much better. You have way more time, way cooler.
It's kind of gone full circle, I guess, in that
Yeah,
way, right? Yeah, yeah.
for sure.
So how did that first project go? Because that sounds like a fascinating project. I'm sure there was a lot of learning lessons and maybe stuff that kind of came up that was unexpected, but all in all,
Tons.
how did it go?
Yeah, overall, honestly, it went great. That was the best flip I ever did to date.
Really?
Yeah, because back then lumber prices were still really low, so my
Mm,
cost to build was really low. But it took me a year and a half to do
okay.
because I went through like 2 or 3 different contractors trying to figure out who I wanted to use for this project. And so it was a lot of learning curves, just like what to look for, how the project goes, what order things go in, all of that type of stuff. And also I'm a young looking female, so getting into this very male dominant industry was very difficult for me because people would look at me and say, oh, she doesn't know what she's doing, she's not experienced, so they would just either quote me way too high, put me on the back burner. So that first project, I learned a lot of that and got a lot of that out of the way. But I did great. I made great money on it. It made me want to do all of the houses around it. So, that's what I ended up doing. I bought every single house around this one and like,
Really? So you bought
yeah,
the neighborhood in a way, one by one. So
yes.
were the property in the neighborhood for sale, or did you just do direct to seller marketing? How did you
Yeah.
get a hold of those properties?
They were all off market, every single one of them. So they would see me over there because I said I had to go through a few contractors. So the first guy put me off, kept putting me off, putting me off. So I went in there. I bought this old truck. This truck was like $1,500. I bought an old truck. I got a crowbar. And so I started doing demo because I'm a healthcare provider. I don't know anything about building a home, but I was like, I can knock down some walls at the very least. So I was doing demo. I'd go there after work and I'd go there on the weekends. So they were seeing me. So at first they were thinking some big corporation, West Coast investor was going to buy this. And then they see me pull up in my truck and my crowbar. They're like, wait, what? And then they saw what I was building. And so the neighbors all got to know me. And so they're like, hey, my son is selling his house across the street. Do you want to buy it? Hey, this one, do you want to buy this? Hey, I'm looking to move. If you find me a house, I'll trade you. I'm like, okay. So literally every single one of them was off the market that I found.
Wow. And then were you did you just flip that one and then hold the other one? What were you flipping all of them? How many flips did you do and how many did you hold?
So I did about 5 and I didn't hold any of them. Some of them I started just to offload as my goals changed because like I said, I pivoted to buy and hold single family. But I had to buy everything around it because no one was on this side of town yet. So
Mm,
I bought the one house that was burnt down. And then across the street was a problem neighbor who was really loud. And then next door got condemned by the health department and the guy moved out and then a bunch of people took over that. So I knew I had to get certain houses off of the street and they were all right next door, across the street, right next door. So in order for me to sell the house that I was flipping, and I was putting like smart home system, natural stone tile, the works in this house. So in order for me to sell it, I had to get rid of the neighbors. So I then, when I was doing open houses and had it on the market, we were able to say, hey, this is the same developer. So here's the renderings for the homes. Here is what is going to be your neighbor. And so they felt okay about it because they looked at it now as vacant, burnt down. But I'm like, wait, no, like it's okay. Don't worry, it's going to leave. And so that's how I was able to sell that house. And so once I sold it, I had like 3 other houses going. So I was able to then offload the other ones because then other investors saw, hey, look at this one beautiful house and look at these 3 that are under construction. So I can buy this one and know that it's a good ROI. So the other ones were really easy to sell after that.
that's cool. You basically turned the whole street around yourself.
Yes, the whole neighborhood, which is so cool because like this home that I'm in is directly across the street from the very first one that I built.
Wow,
So
okay.
yeah, and so I'm still friends with her. Like she gets my mail sometimes. I get her packages if like we're out of town. We hang out, have wine together on the weekend sometimes. So it's really awesome.
So the whole street is a great street now, and that's all because of you. So
Yeah,
you're like the
yeah.
mayor. Are you the mayor? Do they call you the mayor? They should.
Right, I've heard that a few times. I know I'm not.
That's awesome. But then you transitioned into buy and hold. What was the reason that you wanted to transition into? Because you are obviously having some success, right? And you're good at what you're doing, I'm guessing. So
Yeah, it was great success, but as I got older, once I paid off my student debt with a couple of these flips, it was a lot of hands-on. And like I said, there were a lot of learning curves along the way. And I was like, man, this is not that I am not a hard worker, but I was like, I think my time will go way further if I pivot. Like, because I want to be able to go to Mexico for a few weeks and, not worry about it. And if I was flipping 5 homes at once, there's no way I would have had to be on site meeting my contractors, making sure they're doing the right thing. And so I just was really doing a goals audit for myself and thinking, what is going to be in line with my goals as I get older? Because I'm no longer just wanting to spend 90 hours a week on site and in the clinic. So I was like, I'm going to buy a couple single family homes and rent them out. And so that's what I did, because then you hustle until you close. And once you close that rental and rent it out, it's quiet unless you have an issue, and then you handle the issue and it's done. So it was way more in line with what I wanted to do. So I started buying rentals in this exact same area. My very first home was just 7 blocks the other way from where I'm living now. So everything is like right around here. So I really understood the area. I knew who was wanting to live here because it was people like me. And so that's kind of why I transitioned that way.
yeah, but that's cool. And I think we all need to start out with goals, right? We all do start out with goals. And I've found, even in the short time that I've been in real estate, it's constantly evolving your goals, right? And that's the cool thing about it, right? But you need some kind of direction in where to go. And your initial direction was to pay off, that was your goals, pay off the debts that you had. And then you realized, okay, I can use my time better. And I have different goals, and then you adapt and change that. And,
Exactly.
so people might understand, flipping is very transactional, right? You're always buying yourself into a new job, right? You buy a new
Yes.
flip, it's a new job, and it's cool and it's profitable and it's fun and it's something you're passionate about. But just like you put it perfectly there with rental. That's what I love about it. You put the work up front, and then you
Yes.
just sit. You don't sit back. I don't want to mislead anyone.
Yes.
There is some work to managing it, but it's not like a flip where you have to.
Nothing near every day
Yeah,
on site.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, what was your first rental? Was it in the area that you're in now? Because I think there's a lot of power in that as well. That's a great point, that you've learned that area. You niche down into, so
Yes.
you understand everything about that area. You understand what kind of people are going to live there, what kind of finishes they expected, what kind of rental properties they expect. So you don't overdo it, but you don't underdo it, and you understand the rent and you understand everything about it. So I think there's a lot to be said about that, really niching down into a market.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And that's exactly what I did. So before I moved to this home, I said I was just like 7 blocks the other way. This house was on that exact same street, just 2 blocks to the south. So it was right on my same street. And that was my very first rental. It was a little 3 bedroom, 1 bathroom. In the beginning, I put about $5,000 into it, just like added a garage door motor, replaced the floor and painted, and it was good to go. And then 2 people lived there. And then after that, second tenant moved out, I like replaced the countertops, put stainless steel appliances, replaced the bathroom floor. So it was no guts to the studs, no moving walls. It was just like little baby things to bump the rent. And I still own that house now, and it's great. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
And then you built how much of a single family portfolio did you build up?
Yeah. So I had about 10 under my belt before
Oh,
I
wow.
pivoted again to multifamily.
And what caused that pivot then?
Kind of the same thing. I did a goals audit and I said, okay, am I doing what I want to do? Am I happy with my business? And I was. Single family is really good. And I still have a very big passion for single family. But again, what are my goals? I want time. I want freedom. I want to help so many people scale their own businesses who think that they can't, or think that they don't have money, or they don't have the know-how. And I was happy with it, but I was like, I'm doing all of this work to close a duplex, like 2 doors or 1 door. And I'm like, what if I did this much work and closed a building, like 10 units, 20 units, And so then I'm like, you know what? I think I would really like to have an apartment. And so I got with my broker, told him my goals, and we found it was a 23-unit apartment complex just north of downtown in an area that I loved. So same thing, really understood the area, really had a passion for it. And it's been great. So that was my first apartment complex.
Very cool, very cool. Well, let's dive into that a little bit more, because I'm, obviously have a big interest and focus on multifamily.
Yeah.
So you said you had a broker. Was this commercial broker? Was it a residential broker? How did you build that? Was it someone you've used before? How did you build that relationship? For a lot of people starting out, that relationship is key, and getting that credibility and having them wanting to
Yes.
bring you deals and work with you is key.
Yes, it sure is. And he's a commercial broker, but he also does residential. So I worked with him originally to sell my flips. And
Mm.
so he does like luxury residential, and then he also does commercial. So he and I are so aligned. Like, he is very interested and specializes in exactly the areas that I did. And so we both really want to work with each other because we both really know, hey, he knows what he's doing. He's going to bring me good deals. And he's like, hey, she's going to close. She's going to work her butt off to close this deal. She knows what she wants. Because how many brokers know all these buyers that come to them and they're like sending them exactly what they want, but they're like, oh, let me check with this person, or let me run the numbers, and they miss out on the deal. He knows I'm going to be like, all right, yep, let's go. Let's put in that LOI. Let's go. Here's the earnest money. Like, so yeah, he was someone that I really built a relationship with like over the years. And he just learned how I run my business. I learned how he runs his. And it's been really, really awesome so far. His name's Corey Gardner, Corey the broker in Indianapolis. Any of you listening who need a commercial broker, he is amazing.
That's awesome. And that's all that brokers care about, right? If they know that you can close, you're going to close, you're going to do, because they get 10 million people calling them every day. Hey, I want a 15 cap. I want a 20% cash on cash, right?
Exactly. Yeah, don't we all?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. Yeah. And, they get a lot of people wasting their time. And also from the other standpoint as well, when they're contacting these sellers, these sellers are putting their faith in these brokers to sell these properties. And if they bring a buyer that doesn't follow through, that's a reflection on them. That makes them look bad. And they have a credibility and they have a reputation to uphold as well. So if you're just like you are, a solid closer that's going to do what you say you're going to do and can rely on you, they're going to want to work with you. So what was the story in the deal? You said it was in a great area that you loved, but what about the property itself? What was the opportunity there?
Yeah, so he found this off the market direct to seller. So it was a slam dunk deal. And I bought this back in 2019. So I've done so much growing and learning since then. I look back on that and I'm like, wow, God is good, because I hit everything exactly on the head, but I didn't really know why I was doing the things I was back then. I just knew, I'm like, okay, this is what I should do. And now I'm like, okay, that was perfect. So it was a C-class property, really high occupancy. I think I had one or two vacancies out of the 23 when I bought it. Really low expenses because it was run really well before. I think it was about 48% expenses or something like that. And I bought it at a 10 cap. It was like
Wow.
a 9.8 or something
What?
crazy. So yeah, it was a super slam dunk deal. And so now what I ended up doing was, so in 18 months later, so last year, I continued to bump the rents, did very small capex, but didn't really dump a whole lot of money into it, just bumped the rents and managed it better. I was able to increase the value of the property by 225K. So I refinanced and pulled all of that out and invested in the newest building that I just bought.
That is awesome. And were you managing it? Were you self-managing or did you have a third party?
No,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I have a third party manager. I do
Okay.
not know how to manage C-class tenants.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I have a third party manager for that. Totally fine.
Do you mind sharing how much you paid for it?
For the building or for the
Yeah.
management?
No, for the building. Yeah. How much you bought it for? Yeah.
Yeah, so I bought it for about 625K, and then last
Wow.
year, about 6 months ago, it was, or actually no longer than 6 months ago now, it was last July. It appraised for 850.
Okay. That's
Yeah. So I
that's
got
incredible.
back my entire down payment plus some.
Wow. See that, and that's the powerful thing about multifamily as well. You can do it in single family as well, but if you can go bigger and kind of you can get a lot of money back and roll it into the next one. And now you've rolled it into another property, I believe, right? Are you under contract? Can we
Yes.
talk about that, or is it?
Yes, so I
Okay. Okay.
just
Okay.
closed. I just
Okay.
closed it a month ago. So
Wow.
this
Congrats.
one, thank you so much. So that was a hard, oh my gosh, like sleepless nights. I would work until literally midnight on that one. So that one was a little bit different. So it is C class also. It's a
Hmm.
27 unit and it's downtown right off Mass Ave. So everyone who's familiar with Indianapolis all knows Mass Ave. It's the place to go out and live and everything. It's like the place where everyone wants to hang out, and it's just like 4 blocks away from there. And this one was tough because it is super unstable. Like the whole building itself is kind of a mess. Like it's on a boiler system, and it's also it's 27 units, but there's only 5 electric meters,
Mm.
and there's no parking except for right in front. So so for 27 units, downtown, it's like, what the heck? And the rents currently, well, when I bought them, were between 380 and $440 a month.
Okay.
It was like,
What should they be in that area?
I just leased one for 628.
Wow. Okay.
So it's like, whoa. So it is very unstable. I have people in there that have not paid since January, and those are the only records that I have because it was owned by a lady who unfortunately passed away, put it down to her sons, who then sold it. So we have no records whatsoever. It was all self-managed. So it's a mess. It's a complete mess. So it's going to be a little difficult. It's very different than my first building, but I ran some quick numbers. So I bought it as it was. So that one was 750. I ran the numbers and it was I bought it at like a 4.3 cap or
Hmm.
something.
Yeah.
But if I get 628 for all the units and let's just say 25 occupied out of the 27, at a 7 cap, I'm bumping the value to 1.3. So I'm
Yeah.
almost doubling the value of it. So I'm allotting probably about 6 months because I think I'm going to have to evict every single person in there because no one's paying, everyone's under value. The whole thing's just a mess. So that's my plan for that one. But I originally was going to gut the whole thing and rebuild it right away. But with the cost of lumber being where it is now, it's crazy high. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to stabilize this building the way it is, bump the value. Then in a year or like even 18 months, when I go to redo this building, I can then have the appraiser or the bank see that I bumped the value of the building to 1.4 instead of 750. I can use that equity in my down payment. So I can hopefully get a $2 million loan for only my down payment, what I got. And so to me, that made the way most sense. I'm not rushing to like gut the building and get everybody out at one time and get the contractors set and get the numbers. So I think that's what my plan is. And that took probably 6 weeks of going back and forth and learning everything I can about lumber costs and renovation costs and running these numbers. I was going all over the place figuring that out, but that's the plan.
Do you have anyone helping with you with any of this, or is it just all on you? Do you have a mentor or someone that's kind of helping you guide you or giving you advice?
My broker Corey,
Okay.
he has been there with me since day one. So he not only found the deal for me again off market, direct to the seller, but he's been really helping me with the numbers and everything. And so, and there's also a lot more to this deal than I just said. It's also in an opportunity zone. So it's that I had never heard of. I just knew it was really good for tax reasons. But in an opportunity zone, when you purchase a building, so I purchased it for 750 in 30 months, if I put 750 into the building, any appreciation of the building for 10 years, if I hold it for 10 years, grows completely tax free.
Mhm.
But you have to do certain things, like it's in a historical society too, so I have to do certain things with the brick and certain things with the windows. And so it's been an incredible learning experience, but Corey knew a lot about that with the city and he's really well connected, and so that's why he's been helping me and so hands-on with this project, because I'm like, what is this, like, what's an opportunity zone? Okay, what do I have to do for my taxes? Like, what am I doing? Like, so it's just been really crazy.
But that's the importance of having the right team around you, right? You don't need to know
Yes.
everything, right? It helps if he does, but if you have people that are experienced and can help you, it makes the world of difference. And
Yes.
I'm not a fan of historic. I own a property in a historic district in just outside Cincinnati as well. And I had to
Nice.
recently pay out 12 grand for guttering. So I hate, because you have to replace. So it
Oh.
was box guttering. So I don't know if you know what box guttering is. Just not the regular guttering. You have to build like I had to rebuild that. So I was like, oh
Oh,
man,
because you can't change anything.
yeah, it has to be realized. I
Oh
was like,
no.
I know. I was like, that was an unsuspected phone call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
But it's all good. That deal's going to work out great in the end. But yeah. But
oh good.
how did you find? Was it the broker again that find this direct to seller? Is that how you guys found this deal again?
Yeah, direct to seller. Cause like I said, I'm very, very clear with what my goals are and I'm very true to my word. And so, like I said, I've worked with him for a long time. So he knows if he brings me a deal that is close to my criteria or it can make sense in my brain, he knows I'm going to jump on it. And it was a hell of a deal because every single person that I knew, and even myself, started to doubt it because it was a 4 cap. It was completely, you have no financials.
Yeah.
I got so many no's. I got at least 9 no's from 9 different banks. And the bank that ended up financing me also said no.
Oh wow.
And when he did that, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose 25 grand of earnest money. And I've just lost all of my legal fees. And then I'm like, wait, you can't say no. Like, no, you can't say no. I literally like, and this is another thing where you have to have a good team. I called my broker. I was like, oh my God, what do I do? Is it my post-closing liquidity, this and that? He sold one of my other properties to close like
Oh,
3 weeks
wow.
before. So I sold that. I sold my Porsche. I was like, oh my God, please. Like, I went back to the bank. I was like, okay, I just sold one of my cars. I just sold one of my properties. And please, like, I reran these numbers and I'm going to do this. Like, because at first I was going to buy it with like saying that I was going to renovate it. But now I'm like, okay, I'm just going to buy it now. And then now that I have this post-closing liquidity, if it doesn't appraise, I can come to the closing table, like, please. And so he took it back to committee and got it approved. I was like, oh my God, thank you. So it was like, so people were like, what are you doing? So it was such a hard deal. So any other buyer would not have bought this deal. Like no bank was financing it. Everyone said I was crazy. But like I said, if I'm like true to my word, whatever, he works really, really hard for me. So it worked out in my favor.
For people who don't understand what the issues with getting financing on something like that, everyone's like, well, that's a great deal. You're buying it for X and selling it for Z. It's like way more. It's worth undervalued. Like, what is the issue? Why would you have any trouble financing something like that?
Oh gosh. So the bank is going to look at this property like it's a business. So they're going to look at the income. Well, when you have no tax returns for the last 2 years, they have no idea how this building's performing. And when you have a rent roll that is a scanned, typed out, handwritten piece of paper, it's like, I didn't even know how many units this building was until I went in there and counted the doors. People were like, oh, it's 26 unit. No, it's 27 units, but like here, but where's the other unit? I don't know. And so there was no clear picture of the building. So we had no tax returns, no financials, no pro forma, no P&Ls, nothing. And so the bank can't loan you on this because they don't know if you can fold the payment because they look at the like DCR debt service coverage ratio. And so they look for at least a 1.2, meaning after their debt service, which is after their mortgage payment, you have to at least be making the 0.2, so 20% of your money. And so if you don't meet that, they're not going to finance it because they're like, you can't even afford this building. And so, and not only that, it was really difficult to insure the building because the building is 100 years old. And like I said, the mechanicals on the inside are a complete mess. And so they're like, this is too risky for us. So there was a lot that went into it that the bank was like, they would rather just finance a regular 7.5 cap C-class property that's already completely stabilized and cash flowing and whatever. And this one was totally not stable at all. So no bank was going to touch it.
So what kind, you just go through was it a local credit union? Was it a bridge loan? What kind of loan did you get on it?
I originally tried to get a bridge because I was going to put $1.2 million into it to renovate it. I was going to make it into 18 units. And this is still the plan. I'm just pushing this off like a year and a half to bump the value of the building. But originally was doing a bridge. But when he said no, and I was like freaking out, I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. So that's when I sold my car, sold the other property. I ended up just buying the building as it stands as a regular C-class, whatever occupancy building. And so they were just financing it as a regular purchase. So I went to a local bank. The guy who financed my original property has been phenomenal. He financed 4 of my single families and my apartment. He switched banks. And so I found him at his other bank. And so he already had a relationship with us. And so he knew that I was going to close and do whatever I could. And so he kind of put his neck on the line for me. So thank God for him. So we got it done.
That's awesome. That's awesome. But up front as well, how do you like understand that? Because there's no records, right? Usually how you value a property, you get the T12 and the rent roll, and then you'll do your own underwriting through that. But if you have no records, how did you come up with the value yourself? How did you understand what you were willing to pay for it?
Yeah, I did it because of the location, straight up location. So just the way I bought all my other properties, that very first flip I ever did burned down in the quote unquote ghetto of the neighborhood. I saw it with my own eyes. And so I knew what everyone else was saying and I consider it, but I never just take it for face value. I go there myself. And so I walk the neighborhoods and everything. And so that neighborhood though, everyone loves it already. It's like phenomenal. It's just the building itself. And in my brain, I want that piece of land. If I were buying that vacant piece of land and I built on it, that is still going to be super valuable. Not to mention there's a property right across the street that I've been watching for the last 2 years that I've been wanting to buy. And so I really understood it. And so to me, yes, 750 was crazy high. The building for the numbers, what they were currently at would have only appraised for like 475. And honestly, like the guy who bought it before me, it's probably what he paid. I think I looked it up. I think he paid like 400 something for it, but I don't care. I'm happy with
Yeah,
him
yeah.
making money. I'm not worried about how much money he's going to make. I'm worried about how much money I'm going to make. And so I was just looking at it like, okay, even though it's completely unstable, I know for a fact I can get 600 rents. And that's exactly what I did. Yesterday, I got a call from my manager that said she leased one of the vacant units for 628. And so I'm like, okay, if I just run these numbers and if I get 628 and you run the numbers and like do all your pro formas and your spreadsheets and whatever, I knew that it was going to be 1.3 with 50% expenses. So I just knew I'm fine with paying this, even though right now it's going to really be terrible, which it is. And it's stressful because it's the first of the month and that payment's due. But, I know it's only temporary. Like in 6 months, it's not going to be, it's going to be phenomenal. And everyone's going to be kicking themselves wishing they bought it.
Yeah. And you bring up a great point there, I think, and everyone talks about cap rate all the time and sort of you got to buy on, not on actuals necessarily, but that, there's some people that suggest that, but you can't always do that, right? That's because the actuals on this one are terrible. It's like you said, for something cap rate, but the
Yes.
potential is, if you have a huge upside potential on something, you've got to really take that in consideration, right? And you're going to pay full on the upside potential, but if like on this one it's going to be worth 1.3 when you fix it up, right? Well, it's a no-brainer, right? It's going to be an amazing deal. So what does it matter what you pay for it now necessarily, like as long as it adds up in the end? So
Exactly.
yeah,
Because it's almost going to double with me just bumping rents. This
right.
is not my renovation.
Okay,
Like my
yeah.
renovation, I'm going to put, 1.3 into it, or no, 1.2 into it, or 1.1 for the renovation. So this is no renovation
Right.
whatsoever.
So even like that, it's a fantastic deal. Even if you don't do that, let's just take it from
Yeah.
625 to 1.3 is a crazy deal in itself. So congratulations. That's an awesome deal. That's very cool.
Thanks. Yeah.
A lot of work. And something else that comes up there is that, what does it take to be successful, right? Well, you just touched on some stuff there. If you really want to be successful, you're going to sell your house, you're going to sell your car, right? And you're going to call 9 different lenders and then go back to the same lender again and almost make them give you the deal, right? And do whatever it takes essentially to make it happen. I think that do attitude is what you really need to be successful. So it's cool to hear that story. That's what you did with that one. So it's going to be a great deal, no doubt. It'll be worth it in the end.
Yes, it will. Talk to me in like 5 months and then I'll be loving my life. But right now it's a little stressful.
You can buy your Porsche back then.
Exactly. I'm so sad.
Well, very cool, very cool. Well, as this show is called Wrestling with Real Estate, I like to incorporate some wrestling related real estate questions. So the first question is, and I warned you about this one before, was what would your wrestling name be?
Okay, now I gotta think about it. Wrestling name.
Do you have a nickname that your friends call you or something like that? Or
people called me Wazo, but like,
okay,
I don't know how that could be. I don't know, wrestling related. Maybe Kim the Killer. I don't know.
I like that one. That one works. Kim the Killer.
I don't know.
Kim the Killer. Okay, I like that. Because you don't look like a killer, but then you clearly are a killer in real estate, right? You know what I mean? You got an innocent face, but you're a deal killer for sure. That's
so
awesome.
It's funny because I actually do have a big martial arts background. I'm actually black belt in Shotokan.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so I work in the firearms industry too.
So if the tenants don't pay, you go there in person, you're the debt collector.
So intimidating.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, every wrestler has a special move. What is your special move in real estate?
Okay, I would say probably really understanding my neighborhood, because I know a lot of people go look at just a spreadsheet or just numbers when they're considering buying a property. And the numbers are very important, but to me, the numbers aren't everything. And a lot of the deals that I've done, a lot of people, like this one we just talked about, no one would have touched it because the numbers are so trash. But because I really understand like my business and my neighborhood and what I'm really good at, it's going to be really, really lucrative for me. So I would say just definitely knowing my neighborhood and doing things very non-traditionally.
I agree. And I was thinking that as you were saying that earlier, is because you understand your area, you understand the neighborhood intrinsically, you understand it so well, you can do deals that other people wouldn't, right? Like you said, on paper, that deal doesn't pan out whatsoever, because it's in a great area, what rents can be, what you can do with it. It's a great deal for you. And then so many other people are passing it. So I think that's a great superpower to have. What's been the biggest body slam you've taken? in real estate?
Okay, biggest body slam I've taken, I would say certainly with my single families. After my first flip, I switched contractors. There was a couple things that I wasn't really happy with, and it came down to communication, not the work. But so I switched contractors, and I got myself in two lawsuits with two different people before I found my
Mm,
third contractor who finally is phenomenal. So I ended up having to sue both of those guys. So I would say that's definitely the biggest body slam because those were not cheap. And I'm still from 2017, one of them is still open. I can't collect. So these people just keep running away from me. But I would say definitely that stinks because my profit margin would have been a lot larger had I not had to sue these two guys. But that was the biggest body slam.
and some lessons learned, I'm sure, along the way as well.
Yes, I'm very good at screening contractors now. So
Do you have some quick few tips, anything on that point? How do you screen contractors? I know we're wrapping up,
yeah,
but
I think to just understand that when you meet someone and someone talks to me and they hear what my goals are and they hear like everything that I had going on at the time. I had an entire 900 block of homes that I was going to flip with one person. And so they get very wide-eyed and I don't think they're bad people. Neither of these men, I don't think they're bad people. I just think that they bit off more than they can chew. And just for when you're talking to people, just understand that they have ambitions, they have hopes, and they want to work with you because it's going to be an incredible opportunity to work with you. Whoever is listening, you are really, really awesome and you are smart and people are going to want to work with you, but be very, very particular with them. You want to hear a yes because you just want someone to take this off your plate and do it because you can't do it. But you have to be very, very specific. Like there were a couple things that happened with both of these people that made me just put my guard down right away and trust them. And don't do it. Just don't do it. Go through your steps. And I mean, this guy that I'm working with now, I'm talking about doing a 37 unit ground up development, and he wants to partner like this builder. This builder finished this home that I'm in now. He finished 3 of my other flips on this very street. He's eventually going to do that 27 unit renovation. Phenomenal. And now he wants to partner on a new build. And so once you find that person, he's going to be great. He's going to be a great person of your team, or she, but just be very, very particular with who you hire.
right, yeah, but again, going back to getting rock stars on your team, right? You have your broker, right, as a rock star, right?
Yes.
Just find that person, right? Take the time to find the right person because they'll make you a lot of money in the long run.
Yes, and you will make them a lot of money too. Like every single person on my team, we love working with each other, and we're not worried about, oh, well, I just made you 100 grand. Well, great. I hope you make more, like, because you just made me 100
Right?
grand, and
Yeah, yeah,
you know what
yeah,
I mean? It's like,
yeah.
hey, I hope so. I hope you do well. I want you to make money.
That's the thing, right? If they do well, you do well. So that's the win-win situation that you want.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So was there a moment that you were standing on the top rope, getting ready to jump, but you were too scared? What was it, and how did you overcome it?
There were two instances that come to my mind, but both times I ended up jumping. The very first one was my very first flip. When I bought it, like I said, there were a lot of orders to repair, health department liens, all this. And like I said, that very first contractor I had before the guy I ended up using kept pushing me off, pushing me off. So I was in there doing demo. That was to show the city that there was progress being made because they kept like putting fines on me. And so I was like, oh my gosh. And I looked at the bill, it was like 8 or 9 grand that was going to be due 6 months before I thought. And so I called my mom. I remember I was at the clinic. I was working, seeing patients that day. I was on my lunch break. I step outside and I call my mom. I'm like, oh my gosh, mom, like, I'm so stressed out. I'm going to owe like 8 grand. Like, I don't know what to do. You know what? Maybe I'm just going to sell this house. It was a cool idea, but you know what? I think maybe I'm just going to not do this. It's just a lot. But all the while I was telling her what I was doing. I wasn't asking her for anything. I was just like telling her because a lot of people, and I'm sure you probably feel like this, like can't understand your vision and what you're doing. They're like, what are you
Mhm.
doing? Like, why do you have to do that? But like, so I would talk to my mom a lot, just like, oh, hey, I just bought this house. Oh, hey, I'm going to do this. So she knew all, like what I was doing education wise. And so when I told her I was going to back out and she's like, oh no, like you're my daughter. I didn't raise a quitter and you know exactly what you're doing. And so she's like, check your bank account. I just transferred you to money. I'm your first investor. You're not backing out. And I was like, oh, like, so that little push was all I needed. And so I was like, okay, all right, I'm going to go pay these liens with this money you just sent me. And then I'm going to go back in there and start knocking down the walls. And it was great because like I said, that one was the best flip I ever did. I made like 50 to 60 grand on it. I was so happy. So that was one of them where my mom had my back. And the second one was this 27 unit. I had everyone against me. The insurance company was against me. Contractors were telling me that it was going to be crazy amounts to redo the building. Mechanicals are a mess. The bank wasn't going to finance it. And the lawyers for the opportunity zone. It was just like all this stuff. And the biggest thing was my broker told me that my contractor called him and said, "Hey, I'm afraid Kim's going to go bankrupt with this building. And I really don't want that because I really like working with her. And if she goes bankrupt, that means we don't work together anymore." And I was like, he didn't tell me that. He told my broker. And my broker told me, I was like, "Oh shoot, like that's pretty like, dang, like, okay, maybe I should really like step back and like look at this whole thing." And then I told my mom, and my mom's like, "Man, Kimberly, I don't know. I'm putting all this like faith in you that you're going to do the right thing, but geez, maybe you should just lose the earnest money." And I had everyone telling me that, like, "Hey, you know what? 25 grand, you lose 25 grand now, you're saving hundreds of thousands and all this. Maybe it's just not the right deal. Don't try to make it work." And I had all of this in my brain, and I get my energy so much from the people around me.
Mm,
The person who had my back this time was my broker.
mm.
He was like, "Kim, like, stop. Why are you talking to all these people? Like, focus, come back, focus on me. Like, look at this deal, look at this person. We're going to figure this out. This is a very small hill that you have to climb. You just have to figure it out." And I'm like, "I can't, like, oh my God, there's so much stuff." And I was so overwhelmed, so stressed out, anxiety through the roof. He's like, "Hey, listen, this is what you're good at. Just focus on this. Like, hey, like, call this person, call your attorney, call this and figure it out." And I figured it out. So those were two instances where I almost didn't jump, but I did.
That's awesome, because it can be tough, right? The noises from all the people around you is they influence us so much, right? And it's, people getting started, I think they get a lot of this as well, right? "Oh, why are you doing real estate? Real estate is risky. Oh, why, blah, 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 blah." And it's really hard to drown out the noise sometimes. But I think you also had a vision, right? And I think it's also important to have a vision, have an understanding of what you want, what you're trying to do. And again, going back to that team, having solid people on the team, people that you can trust, people that you like, people that you can rely on, and leaning on them and using their experiences and their knowledge and their faith in you to kind of push forward as well.
Yes, exactly. You're so right.
Well, very cool. Well, hey, this has been an awesome interview. It's been kind of an impromptu interview, but
Yeah, totally. It was
it's been
great.
really, yeah, it's been awesome. It's been awesome. I really enjoyed it, and I really, really love your story and everything that you've been able to do. But before we wrap up, if people want to get in touch with you, if people want to hear more about what you're up to and what you're doing, how can they do so?
Yeah, so anyone can go follow me on Instagram. My handle is Kimberly Marie 920. You can also send me an email at kim@reddoorrenovation.com.
Very cool, very cool. Well, we'll now have you back on in 5 or 6 months' time when you stabilize that property or you fixed it up or whatever, and hear
Yes.
how even more amazing that deal is, and you'll probably have tons more deals going on by that time as well. But for the time being, thank you so much for making this happen today. I really enjoyed that interview. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.